Welcome to Healthy Living. I'm Lori Johnson. Thanks for joining us. Our topic today is mental health, how we can heal our own brain function and emotional wellness, how we can improve it. And we're talking today with psychiatrist Dr. Drew Ramsey, author of the book, Healing the Modern Brain. Dr. Ramsey, great to see you. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Lori, thanks so much for having me. Hey, everybody. It's great to be with you all.
So in your experience as a psychiatrist, kind of give us the lowdown. Where are we as a nation regarding our mental health?
Well, in many ways, as a nation, we're better poised than ever before. We know more about mental health. It's so amazing to be here with you all. We're talking more about mental health. There are more resources available than ever before. And at the same time, we all know we are in the midst of a huge mental health epidemic, a crisis like we've never seen before. And as a practicing psychiatrist, I've seen this shift. I've seen a shift happening in terms of both what we were just talking about, that everyone is really more aware of mental health, but also that we need to do more, that the modern world has a new, in some ways, set of costs to us. And so where we are right now and where this book, Healing the Modern Brain, I hope is so meaningful to people, is we need a framework to really help us build our mental health and our mental fitness, like we do our physical fitness. Lori, I'm sure you and everyone listening, they've got some things they either are hoping to do here or maybe made some resolutions this year to do. And then there's maybe the reality of what we're doing with our physical fitness. With our mental health, I find a lot of people don't have a plan. And there are some things we all know about and that the research now supports really more than ever before in history that we have to be doing to take care of our mental health and to build our mental fitness.
And what I really love about your book is you talk about two things, really, mental health issues like depression, anxiety, ADHD, addiction, the list goes on and on. But then also brain function, being able to remember things better and just so that our brain is working at top capacity. And you suggest a lot of things that we can do ourselves, which is great because we see that mental health professionals are really overbooked these days. We just don't have enough of them. And so we should be doing so many of these things on our own, right?
That's exactly right, Lori. And I think about all of this as really brain functioning. When I think about mood or focus or cognitive performance, as you're saying, these are all functions of our brain. And where I really hope Healing the Modern Brain helps people think more about this is when you have a few minutes or when you look at your schedule for the week, that we're doing things to support our mental fitness, that we're doing things where whether you have these disorders or not, and we know more than 50 million Americans are now struggling with a diagnosed mental health condition. And again, I think that's progress because with diagnosis and with treatment, we know we can get better. We know that we help people heal. And we also know, and as a practicing psychiatrist, I do lots of therapy. I've got my couch right here behind me. I prescribe a lot of different medications, and those are very helpful and work for lots of people. But we know there's more of that. If I treat your depression with an antidepressant and you're feeling better, less tearful, happier, more engaged, more confident, we know, though, you've got to take those attributes, that kind of mental health, and do some things with it. Things like connection, things like working on your sense of engagement, things like making sure and keeping to take care of your sleep hygiene and nutrition. And these are what I call the tenets of building mental fitness. And with these tenets, the idea is to kind of give people a bucket or a category, a place that, if you're struggling a little bit, maybe with your mood or with anxiety or the clarity of your thinking, to be able to invest in a specific way, in the ways that I see working for my patients, that helps you take those steps you need to take to build mental fitness and to really have optimal mental health.
One thing that I found really fascinating about your book was your emphasis on nutrition, specifically this idea of the gut microbiome and how connected it is to our mental health, the way we feel, our moods, but also the way we think. Talk a little bit more about this importance of fortifying our gut microbiome and how do we do that?
Well, Lori, thanks so much for asking about that. So nutritional psychiatry, which is how food affects our mood and our brain health, is really what a lot of people know me for. My last book, Eat to Beat Depression and Anxiety, focused on this fascinating new area of science, nutritional psychiatry, how we eat, and how it affects our mental health. And so the gut microbiome are all the collections of organisms in our gut. We talk mostly about the bacteria. And a way for everyone listening to think about this is not just kind of weird bacteria down there. Think about it as genetic information. For example, your genes, you don't have the ability to make vitamin B12, but the organisms in your gut do. And so there are all kinds of fascinating new studies, new research really showing how the gut, which is the largest part of our immune system, the gut really is involved in regulating inflammation. And we know inflammation is such a buzzword in health these days. Inflammation is very involved in mental health, particularly anxiety and depression. And so a diverse microbiome, and it's really easy to, that's what we want, and it's really easy to get there. You need to eat more plants, more crunchy, fibrous plants, and you should start incorporating fermented foods into your diet. These are things like sauerkraut, kimchi, kombucha, kefir, which is a drinkable kind of liquidy yogurt, more miso. These are fermented foods. The fibers that we talk about in plants, that's what the good bugs, as I call them, the organisms in our gut that make the microbiome, that's what they eat. And then we want people eating fermented foods because the most recent research, which it came out of Stanford, showed that when we have people just eat plants, you don't really shift microbiome diversity that much. But when people eat more fermented foods, you really get this robust shift in diversity. And so more fermented foods, more plants. Unfortunately, almost everybody listening still needs this advice, right? We've got to know about 95% of Americans don't eat enough fruits and veggies every day. What I really recommend in terms of promoting overall health is people focusing on a diverse set of food categories, diverse plants. I have this little rhyme: seafood, greens, nuts and beans, and a little dark chocolate. And those are great places to get started to both feed your microbiome, but again, our overall goal, using nutrition, just like we use these other tenets of mental health in healing the modern brain, using nutrition to really orient ourselves and optimize the most important asset you all have, right? Everybody listening, you've got one most important asset. It's not your 401k. It's not even close, not your house. It's your brain. That's your most important asset. And we all have to do more right now to take good care of it because there are more challenges than ever in the modern world.
So when you talk about the probiotics, the fermented foods, those are the ones that have the live bacteria in them. A lot of people don't like those foods. Kimchi, they don't even know what kimchi is, or miso, or things like that. What about just taking a probiotic supplement instead? Is that good enough, or do you really kind of need those fermented foods? And then you were saying in your book also that having the live bacteria isn't good enough. You have to feed them, and what they eat are the plants and the fruits and vegetables. So you really need to have both, the live probiotics, and then you have to feed them with the plants because otherwise they'll die, right? But is it okay just to take a probiotic?
Sounds like you've had some challenges with fermented foods, and maybe kimchi is a little bit of a stretch. You know, that one's a little bit of a stretch for me. We've got a great recipe in HB Depression and Anxiety for a stir-fried rice with kimchi in it that's just amazing. I've also had some kimchi scallion pancakes, amazing. But maybe those are some of the more advanced fermented foods. How about just some yogurt? Or a yogurt smoothie? That's a great place to start. Okay. Probiotics certainly can help people, but I'm really looking for those sustainable things that are real easy on your wallet. And some of the studies looking at nutrition and mental health, and we talk about these in Healing the Modern Brain, you end up with saving thousands of dollars a year because you're eating real food instead of processed foods. And so I really try to nudge people towards trying things like kombucha or a kefir. And there are a lot of different tastes and flavors in the fermented food world. If those don't work at all, sure, there are all kinds of supplements and probiotics that you can take, and sometimes those are really helpful to people.
It's an acquired taste, and when I'm doing well, I eat those and drink those types of foods. I need to be a little bit better at it. Okay, we're going to take a break and be right back with Dr. Drew Ramsey. The book is called Healing the Modern Brain. Stay with us. Welcome back to Healthy Living. We are talking with psychiatrist Drew Ramsey, author of the book Healing the Modern Brain, talking about things that we can do to improve our emotional health, our brain function, and you really hit on a big one in the last segment. Nutrition really makes a difference. What are some of the other things that we can do too? You said things like connecting with other people. We don't do that as much as we used to, right, because of the internet.
That's entirely right. And so let's talk about some of those other tenets. We've got so much research about nutrition. For example, Lori, switching over to a Mediterranean diet, if you have clinical depression on top of regular treatment, 32% of people go into full remission in the SMILES trial by Felice Jacka. So there's a lot of research. What are the other tenets that give us that same kind of boost? Well, one of them, as you're mentioning, is connection. The Surgeon General just did an amazing job coming out with this kind of a public health announcement warning, really, about the loneliness epidemic, and that so many of us aren't spending time connecting IRL, right, in real life, or doing a better job with our online world of having those connections be a little bit more meaningful, right? There's a big difference between just doom scrolling and, let's say connecting with an alumni group or working with maybe your local Habitat for Humanity group and connecting with everybody on Facebook, right? Those are two very different uses of social media. Social connectedness is a huge part of our mental health. I mean, people, some of the research talks about that when you get more kind of social connections in your life, you're more connected, you have more friendships. The advantage to your health is kind of the equivalent of quitting smoking. I mean, it's just incredible. And so, one of the tenets I really emphasize is social connectedness. And in Healing the Modern Brain, I encourage people to actually sit down and make a map of your connections. We talk about emphasizing, those close what I call the inner circle, friends, family, the people that are confidants, thinking about the institutions that you're involved with, whether it's your high school or your college or a trade group or, a community group or a nonprofit. Thinking about the institutions and how you invest in them, not just maybe a donation, but with your time and your sweat equity and your presence, really hugely important to our mental health. And one of those aspects of the modern world, and it's kind of a little bit surprising, we are more connected, more hyper connected than ever before. And at the same time, we're feeling more disconnected. It's one of the top complaints of everyone when it comes to their mental health, not feeling a sense of belonging, not feeling a sense of connectedness. And so the book really asks us, hey, let's address this, let's take a hold of it, and let's get you more connected.
In so many ways, we think we like being disconnected with people. I think about COVID and people going to church. A lot of people stopped going to church during COVID and really never went back. And then you have people working from home. They started working from home during COVID and really never went back. And the gym, a lot of people stopped going to the gym during COVID and really never went back. I'm in that group because I bought a Peloton, so now I can't justify joining the gym anymore. But I really miss seeing my gym friends. How do you get people to re-engage, especially when it feels so much more comfortable to be isolated?
Well, it's a great question, Lori, and you're really talking about the heart of my clinical work and where this book came from. So when I sit down with patients, I think as a psychiatrist, people really think that, I'm sitting down, I'm there to kind of assess you, diagnose you with depression, give you a medication and send you on your way. And that's not how it works. Everybody in mental health knows that's not how it works. And this book, in some ways, is trying to, I guess, pull back the curtain. When you sit down with any good mental health professional, yeah, we'll diagnose and understand treatments with you for sure. But we're also thinking about, like, okay, who's in your life? I talk about in the book a little bit of the behind the scenes, how I think about people clinically and share some really meaningful stories from my clinical work. Individuals who sat here with me or sat with me in a Zoom session over years and shared their life with me, looking for help, looking to get back on track. One of the stories I tell in the book is about a man named Ronnie who came to see me. Ronnie's just a great guy, a divorced dad. As a psychiatrist, you get to sit with people in these real difficult transitions. Being in your 40s, going from being comfortably married to going out there and dating and online dating and being a parent and co-parenting. That's all a lot of modern challenge in a lot of ways. And so one of my patients was really isolated, especially he had a son that went off to college. It really resonated with me. I kind of worry about that part of my life. What's it going to be like when you got that empty nest? And so part of our work together, along with treating some of his anxiety symptoms, was really getting him to connect up with, he was a big football fan. And it was about, going from kind of fantasy football, right, commenting and stuff to going and watching some games with people, getting a group of people to go to games, really starting to be a fan with other fans, made a huge difference for him. And so what I encourage people to do is really start small. Mental fitness is about these small steps we take in our everyday life. I'm always worried people are going to see these 9 tenets and feel such an emphasis these days on kind of extreme wellness. People shouldn't be overwhelmed. These are about little small wins. I call it points on the board.
Hmm.
Making that effort,
Uh-huh.
putting points on the
Yeah,
board, connecting with other people. And
absolutely.
and so I find people starting through your hobbies, your interests, starting with connections you already have. Don't make it overly complicated, folks. If there's,
Hmm.
someone in your phone you haven't texted, give them a call.
We're going to take another break and be right back with Dr. Drew Ramsey. The book is called Healing the Modern Brain. Stay with us. Welcome back. We're continuing our discussion with Dr. Drew Ramsey, author of the book Healing the Modern Brain. And Dr. Ramsey, one of my favorite parts is when you talk about neuroplasticity. And why I love this so much is because you're saying we can change the way we think with these neuro pathways. Could you talk about how we could do that, this idea of neuroplasticity?
Neuroplasticity is the idea, everyone, that your brain grows and changes in adult life. You make new brain connections, you make new brain cells. And I find this super inspiring, especially when I work with patients. And a lot of times people feel stuck, feel maybe their brain's like broken or something wrong. And so this notion that, we can grow new neural pathways, we can strengthen neural pathways. There's actually been a lot of research showing this is how psychotherapy works, is that it makes parts of our brain stronger. And so all of the tenets that I focus on in healing the modern brain, they kind of come down to this final common pathway around a molecule called BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. It's a molecule that our brain makes that lets it grow and repair itself, and it even spurs the birth of new brain cells. So when you look at a lot of the aspects of the tenets of healing the modern brain, right, one of them is movement. For example, do I encourage you to go to the gym and punch a bunch of iron, pump iron? No, I encourage you to go out dancing tonight. The research shows that's the best thing for brain growth, and mental health when it comes to movement. And so thinking about neuroplasticity and how our diet, our movement, our sleep, and then how some of these psychological concepts like unburdening or working on our social connections. Lori, it's wild. Even more social connections increases neuroplasticity. So if you want to make your brain grow, go dancing, talk to some friends, connect with people. And then I find it as I'm falling asleep at night, I find it, I guess, a reassuring thought that the new brain science has really let me know these points on the board, these things I've done all day to really try and take care of my mental health. They're leading to my brain healing, cleaning itself out, and growing new brain cells and new connections at night.
And you were talking about going to sleep. Sleep is a big thing too. Not getting the proper amount of sleep, and so many of us aren't. And again, it seems like all roads go back to social media and our internet involvement, right? So many people aren't getting the sleep they need because they're on their phones so late.
That's part of it for sure. It's all the stimulation of the phone. But look, people have been having sleep problems and insomnia long before we had screens. We talk about screens and screen time for sure in healing the modern brain. But I also talk about some of the other techniques I use in my clinical practice. The early morning light. Really, we do a lot of work in the book helping people do an assessment of their sleeping environment. Sometimes it's the screen, but if you really follow the rules in healing the modern brain, there's no screen in your room. You're in a dark, quiet, really inviting environment to have solid 8 hours of sleep. And so there are a lot of moves in the book really designed to specifically help you tweak some of these, what I call low-hanging fruit. Your mental fitness, kind of just like your physical fitness, it's right there waiting for you. It's a few steps away. And I hope everybody feels the encouragement in the book and the clear steps that the book leads you to build more mental fitness. Again, these mental fitness are the actions that we take every day and the habits we get into to have a healthier, happier, more mentally sound life.
Daily habits, baby steps. All right, we're going to take one final break and be right back with Dr. Drew Ramsey. The book is called Healing the Modern Brain. Welcome back, and we are talking about how to improve our mental health. The book is called Healing the Modern Brain, written by psychiatrist Drew Ramsey. And Dr. Ramsey, you talk about many different things to improve our mental health. Briefly give us some of the other ones that we haven't had a chance to discuss.
For sure. Well, everybody, I hope you feel the encouragement. We've talked about nutrition and movement. We haven't talked about one that's really important, especially after the pandemic, especially with all of the controversy we see, all the headlines we see every day, which is unburdening. Unburdening is a chapter and a tenet of mental fitness that I focus on for you, just based on my clinical experience sitting with so many individuals and families over the years where there are things that we're holding on to, maybe things that no one else knows about us, experiences we've had, things we've done, and it's a burden. And so processing the trauma that we've had, whether it's, significant violent trauma you've experienced or one of these, horrible traumas recently of people losing, for example, their home or their community to weather events, or whether it's, traumas of neglect that you were just raised in a household that didn't really see you or take care of you in a certain way. These are things that get in the way of us having optimally happy and healthy lives. They get in the way of us connecting, attaching, and being our best selves. Burdens get in the way of us building communities and connecting with one another and creating healthy attachments. And so it's one of those, I would say, harder chapters in the book because it's not like a little sleep hygiene or, getting a few more lentils or kale in your diet. It involves sitting with yourself, sitting with your pain, and making a commitment to move forward.
This is great information. Unfortunately, we're out of time. Where can folks find out more about you, Dr. Ramsey?
Well, everybody can come over to the website, drewramseymd.com. We've also got a Rate Your Mental Fitness quiz up on the site. The book's Healing the Modern Brain. It's available in bookstores everywhere. And everyone, I hope you feel my encouragement from, one of your psychiatrists out here taking care of folks that you can do it. You can take great care of your mental health. You can build more mental fitness. And I hope the book helps get you there.
I'm sure it will. Thank you so much for being with us today. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
And thanks to you for tuning into this edition of Healthy Living. I'm Lori Johnson. We'll see you again next week.